Highland. If he's, where is he at? Greg, thank you. Everybody clap for Greg. And we had Mary Al Krieger as well. So thank you to both of them for scheduling this public hearing. Again, thank you all for being here. This is our second round of public hearings. This is the second time we've been in Yuma. And the whole point of this today is making sure that we hear your concerns and your comments about our maps. I think when you guys came in, there was a large map that was blown out, both, I think, is the congressional and legislative maps. So, and you should have also picked up a packet. Now, for those of you that don't have a pack that did not get these maps, raise your hand and I will have Shane back there, Shields, give you a map. So keep your hands raised and Shane will pass a map to you. So before we start, let's go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now, before we start with the presentations, what I'd like for you to do, anybody that wants to speak needs to fill out one of these yellow forms. And if you don't have a yellow form, you can raise your hand, and I think Shane will be happy to, I'm sorry, Shane, I'm putting you to work. And if you don't want to speak and you want your your comments heard, there is a blue form. I think it's still blue. There's a blue form in the back where you can fill out your comments and submit them, and they'll be part of the public record. So, but you definitely, if you want to speak, we definitely have this yellow form. Let me introduce a couple of people from the staff. We have Ray Bladeen, our Executive Director. Ray. We have, you can clap for Ray. We have Christina Gomez, our Deputy Executive Director, back in the back. We have Buck Forst, our Chief Technology Officer. I think he's hiding back there. He's right there. We have Joe Canefield, our Legal Counsel, Joe Canefield. And then we have Willie Desmond with Strategic Telemetry. Willie. And let's see, I think we have Shane Shields, our Community Outreach Representative, as well as Karen Herman. And then we have Michelle Elam, our court reporter. So, before we started the presentations, make sure that you speak loudly and clearly. Michelle will be typing everything you say, so spell your first and last name, spell it out clearly, and don't assume that she'll know how to spell your name, even if it's Bob. Just spell it for her. I think we'd be better off if we do that. And again, your comments will be limited to 3 minutes, so I would recommend that all of you limit your comments to 3 minutes. And then I'll have Alexis explain this. Alexis, can you mind explaining?
The mic is on a timer, and it wants to, there'll be a red light flashing once the 30 seconds are closing up, and then it'll just shut off at the 3-minute mark.
Thank you. Now, let me also introduce a couple individuals, the commissioners. Now, these public hearings are not, we're not required all to be here, and there's so many of them, so what we try to do is divvy up the public hearings. So we have Commissioner Sturts, Commissioner McNulty, Commissioner Freeman, and Chairwoman Mathis, who are more than likely probably watching this presentation via the stream on the web. So please do say hi to them. Hi. Okay, so before we begin, I'd just like to know the whole point of this is for us to hear what your concerns are about our map. So we want to hear what you like, what you don't like, ways we can improve the map. We are not here to answer questions. It's about you and what your issues are and how we can help you. So that's the whole point of the public hearings. So we also have a translator. So let me not forget the translator, Maria G. Gallardo, excuse me. Can she step up here? Is she? Can you? For those of you that aren't, well, she'll explain.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairperson, Vice Chair, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. In accordance with the Voting Rights Act, a translator-interpreter will be available at all public hearings in order to provide translating services that might be needed by citizens who do need translating or interpreting services. Please contact me at this meeting so I can assist you, and my name is Maria Gallardo. vicepresidente José Herrera, comisionados, damas y caballeros, de acuerdo con la ley de los derechos electorales, un traductor e intérprete estará disponible en todas las reuniones de audiencia pública a fin de proporcionar los servicios de traducción para aquellas personas que requieran de traducción o interpretación. Por favor, comuníquese conmigo. Yo soy la traductora designada para esta audiencia y yo los podré ayudar. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
Gracias.
Before we begin, what I'll have Willie Desmond do is, Mr. Desmond, do a presentation on the whole purpose of the second round hearings and just give us some background.
Thank you. My name is Willie Desmond. I work with Strategic Telemetry. We were the firm hired to provide technical assistance to the commission as they do the mapping. Very happy to be here today and hear what you guys have to say. The goal of these meetings is to solicit public comments about the draft maps. So thank you all for attending, and as I mentioned, we're very excited to hear what you have to say. The draft maps that you'll see today are currently under a 30-day review period, so that the commission can learn your opinions. Before getting into the maps, though, I do want to give just a little background and a quick overview of the redistricting process here in Arizona. Arizona's redistricting process is governed by the state constitution as amended by the voters in 2000 with the passage of the Arizona Independent Redistricting Commission's Arizona Redistricting Commission. They're charged with redrawing the maps following the most recent census. The most recent census happened in 2010, and following the 2010 census, Arizona was allocated a 9th and additional congressional district. There are 6 criteria outlined by Proposition 106 and the Arizona Constitution. The first of these criteria is that all plans must comply with the U.S. Constitution and they must comply with the Voting Rights Act. The next criteria is that all plans must have equal population. These first 2 criteria are federally mandated, and any redistricting plan that happens anywhere in the country will have to follow these 2 criteria. The other 4 criteria are Arizona-specific, and we're part of Proposition 106. They are, to the extent practicable, the districts must be compact and contiguous. They must respect communities of interest. They must use visible geographic features, such as city, town, county boundaries, and undivided census tracts when available. And you must favor competitive districts where there is no significant detriment to the other goals. Just to expound a little bit on the Voting Rights Act. Arizona's congressional and legislative districts must receive pre-clearance or approval from the Department of Justice or a federal court under Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act before they can take effect. To get pre-clearance, Arizona must demonstrate that the new districts do not discriminate against minority voters in purpose or effect, which means there can be no intentional or accidental discrimination. Under Section 5, Arizona's redistricting plans cannot be retrogressive. Plans cannot weaken or reduce minority voters' rights. And the way you can tell if a plan is retrogressive is determined by analyzing population and election results. I'm going to take a brief pause to show you a video by Bruce Adelson, an attorney with Federal Compliance Consulting. He's advising the Commission on the Voting Rights Act and the pre-clearance process. So just 1 second.
I was a senior attorney for the United States Department of Justice in 2002 when the department and my team objected to or blocked your legislative redistricting plan. It's very important to understand that under Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, which is a federal law, Arizona must obtain approval or pre-clearance from the Department of Justice or from a federal court in Washington, D.C. for your redistricting plan to go into effect. Under Section 5, under federal law, your redistricting plan cannot discriminate against the rights of minority voters. It cannot retrogress their opportunity to elect whom they want. This is a federal requirement. The federal requirement supersedes and takes precedence over all state requirements, whether they're competitiveness, compactness, contiguity, or keeping communities of interest together. Those are all very important. But if they conflict with the Voting Rights Act and conflict with the one person, one vote requirement of the U.S. Constitution, then they must be revised. The requirements of the Voting Rights Act and one person, one vote are paramount. There cannot be any retrogression or discrimination against the rights of minority voters. If there is, the Department of Justice will not approve the redistricting plan. That's what we said when we wrote our letter in May 2002, and we objected to what the Redistricting Commission 9 years ago had done. We found that the redistricting plan, the legislative plan, had discriminated against the rights of minority voters. And under federal law, that plan could not go into effect. So that as you contemplate redistricting and look at the various maps that have been provided by the Commission, it's very important to understand that the federal requirements under our system of law and government take priority. Those requirements cannot be minimized and must be complied with for your redistricting plan to go into effect next year to enable you to have your legislative and congressional elections. I hope that my perspective as being a former federal law enforcement officer has been helpful, and I wish you continued success with your redistricting process. Thank you.
Okay. Now I'm going to give just a little background on the process of redistricting. I'll just wait 1 second for the PowerPoint to come back. But the first step in the redistricting process is the creation of the Arizona Independent Redistricting Commission. This happened earlier this year, and the 5 commissioners were appointed through a thorough screening process to serve in a voluntary role for the state of Arizona. This year and then for the rest of the decade, the 5 commissioners are Vice Chairman Scott Freeman, Vice Chairman Jose Herrera, who's here this afternoon, excuse me, Chairwoman Colleen Mathis, and Commissioners Linda McNulty and Richard Sturtz. The second step after the establishment of the commission is the first round of public hearings. Before drawing a single line, the commission held 23 public hearings around the state in July and August to get input from the voters and members of the public about issues they think are relevant to the process. After that begins the mapping process. According to Proposition 106, we must start with a clean slate. They started with a complete slate. The state is then divided into equal population districts in a grid-like pattern, forming a grid map. We'll talk a little bit more about this later, but the grid map only meets 2 of the 6 constitutional criteria. So it has equal population and it has compact and contiguous districts. But it then needs to be adjusted to meet all the other criteria laid out in the state constitution. The grid maps were approved on August 18th, and then following that, the commission met several more times, 25 times actually, to consider adjustments to those grid maps to accommodate all the rest of the criteria. During this time, they also received a lot more public input and public comments, and citizen and group submitted draft maps and plans. Following that, the draft maps were created. They were approved on October 3rd. The commission approved the congressional draft map. On October 10th, the commission approved the legislative draft map. The next step is what's happening right now, the second round of public hearings. So there's the 30-day comment period where we go around the state and we'd like to hear what people say. We're currently, it says visiting 25 towns and cities, it's actually 26 now, I believe, to share the draft map and receive additional input during October and then the beginning part of November. Following that, the final maps will be voted on, and after they have been adopted, they will be sent to the Department of Justice for preclearance. And again, because Arizona is subject to Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, the district maps must be approved by the Federal Department of Justice or the federal court in Washington, D.C. before they can be used for Arizona elections. So now, just to give you a little bit of the progression of how we came to these draft maps, this is the old map. This was the map last used in 2010. It was retired after those elections. What we're working on right now, what we're discussing today, is the maps to replace this one. So, per Proposition 106, we wiped the slate clean and started with a totally blank canvas. We didn't look at the old districts. We didn't look at where incumbents live. All of that is disregarded, and they start with what is the grid map. As you can see here, the grid map only takes into account two criteria. That is compact and contiguous districts and equal sized population. The commission asked that two grid maps be prepared for both legislative and congressional, and that they just pick one of the two. They settled on option 2 for both the legislative and congressional, and again, they were adopted on August 18th. All right, now after more than 25 meetings to discuss changes to the grid map, the commission voted to approve this draft map that you see here. In addition to taking into consideration the 6 constitutional criteria, the commission also received a lot of public comment from the public meetings, from round 1 of the public hearings, from comments mailed, emailed, hand-delivered, faxed, and telephoned in. In total, over 5,000 public comments helped form this map. As you see, some of the highlights of the map are that there are 2 predominantly rural districts, there are 3 border districts, there are 3 districts in the greater Tucson region, 5 districts that are entirely within Maricopa County. The plan avoids splitting Arizona's Indian reservations, and there are 2 districts where minority voters have the opportunity to elect candidates of their choice. So, going on to the legislative map, this is the old map that was last used in 2010. Again, per Proposition 106, we started with a blank slate, and then we came up with a grid map. Again, option 2 was selected. So here is the legislative draft map that we're presenting today. It was voted on October 9th, I believe, and some of the points about it is the old map, because of population growth and shrinkage in other areas, had districts that had as few as 155,000 people in them and as many as 378. So some of the districts were more than twice as large as others. This current draft has a deviation of about 207,000 to 215,000. Also, to comply with the Voting Rights Act, the plan includes 10 districts in which minority voters should have the opportunity to elect candidates of their choice. Also, the draft map includes 3 districts wholly within Pima County and 3 additional southern Arizona districts. It has 17 districts primarily within Maricopa County and 9 primarily rural districts. Okay, as I've mentioned, the commission really wants to hear what you have to say about these draft maps. There are a lot of ways to have your voice heard. You can fill out a request to speak form at one of the public meetings that you're at today. Examples of criteria for what you could talk about are constitutional criteria, the draft congressional legislative maps, or anything else that you want to talk about. You can, aside from speaking at one of the hearings, you can fill out one of the blue forms and turn it in today. That will also go on the record. You can also fill out a form on our website and submit it. Or you can call us at 602-542-5221 or toll free at 855-733-7478 and give us your comments. We do want you to stay connected throughout the process. Right here is a screenshot from our website. I just want to highlight a few things. If you click on the meetings tab, you can go and find out information about future meetings, both locations and times. You can watch live streams of the meetings as they're happening if you're not able to attend in person. And you can go back and rewatch all the videos of all the meetings that have happened in the past. So if you're interested in how these maps came to be, you can go back and watch as the commission developed them in public meetings. Probably most importantly, and what most people care about, is looking at the maps. So you can click on the Maps tab either on the top or the bottom, and if you do, it'll take you to a page that looks very much so like this. There's been a few small changes. The maps are available in lots of different formats. They're available as PDFs or JPEGs. One thing, though, I do want to highlight is the maps are available as Google Map files. So if you click on the Google Map button that's circled in red here, what it'll do is it'll take you to a page that looks like this. What these allow you to do is zoom in and zoom out to as small a level of geography as you want as possible. If you wanted to just go all the way down to see just your house, you could do that. You can follow the borders. You can see what really comprises these districts. By clicking on some of the buttons on the left, you're able to turn the shading on and off, remove the county lines, whatever makes it easiest for you to view. So just as an example of how you can zoom in, this is a zoom in, I think, in Maricopa County, but you can drill down a lot farther than this even. So Just in conclusion, as I wrap this up, I'd just like to, again, highlight the Commission's website, www.azredistricting.org. On the website, besides just looking at the maps that we've put out, there is tools for you to draw your own maps and submit them to the Commission. You can watch the current meetings or the past meetings, and you can get updates on future meetings. If you do want to stay connected, you can follow us on Twitter at #AIRC or friend us on Facebook. So I just want to thank you again for taking the time to be here today and being part of this process. I want to extend an invitation to come speak with me afterwards, or any other member of the staff if you have any questions. I'll make sure to answer anything you need to know. So thank you very much for having us today, and we very much so look forward to hearing your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Desmond. Now, again, if you wish to speak, make sure you fill out one of these yellow forms. And just to remind you that there'll be a 3-minute talking period, then within, I think, the 30 seconds before your 3 minutes is up, you'll have a light, and then your mic will be completely shut off. So what we want to do is maximize as many of the public comments. So we want to limit it to 3 minutes. I think that's a good amount. And let's see. I would encourage you have all taken time out of your schedules to be here instead of being with your families. You chose to be here, so thank you very much. So when people speak, whether you agree with them or not, clap for their comments. Again, we are here in Yuma. I know you guys are all very hospitable, good people, and you will be very polite and gracious of every speaker that comes before us. So let's start with our first speaker, Al Krieger. What I'll do, it's Mayor Al Krieger. I will not time you, but I will advise you to be as short as possible. If not, I'll have to time you.
Well, that's an interesting proposition. Thank you very much for bringing the commission here to our community. I guess I'd like to say just a few words to everyone that came here today, that there has been much speculation and comment up to this point relative to the commission's activities. But I want to remind everyone today that this is a community in Arizona, maybe like others, but somewhat unlike many others in Arizona. We are in a somewhat of an isolated corner of the state. However, the city of Yuma is the 11th largest city in the state, and we are continually gaining notoriety for being a growing, vibrant community and a region of importance. The maps that we have, the commission-approved congressional map and the commission-approved legislative maps, appear to divide our community, which I think is a serious error in judgment. If anything, today, if we need anything today in this community, in this state, and in this nation, we need to understand that there's a system that, however flawed it may be, is the system that we must use to move forward for the next 10 years. And I'm just going to politely ask everyone to take just a minute to consider some civility. We hear a lot about diversity and minority votes, and you know what? It's about time we came together as Americans, as citizens of Arizona, and people of a community who can be neighbors, who can work together, who can communicate, and understand that what we're trying to do for the future is much larger than what maybe one individual is trying to do to protect a certain political party or a certain voting bloc. And if there ever was a community in Arizona that is about as colorblind as you can get relative to minorities. In fact, in Yuma, I'm the minority, if there was one. 52% of our county is Hispanic or other races. So the Voting Rights Act coming down from Washington is somewhat, cannot apply it accurately. There's been so many maps put together, the ones that we have here and the ones that I have here, divide our county, they divide our communities, and I am very, very fearful that it's going to set up a extremely divisive fight for the next 10 years that is simply unnecessary. I will just finish up with one comment that the Voting Rights Act relative to the congressional districts may apply. However, the federal government simply does not have jurisdiction over the state of Arizona to mandate any program, funded or otherwise unfunded, and direct us to do something simply because they're the federal government. Arizona gets to decide what Arizona is and does. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay, now we will begin timing. So again, it's 3 minutes. You'll see a red light when you're close to, I think your 30 seconds are almost up, the last 30 seconds. So we'll start with Russ Jones. And again, when you come here, please introduce yourself, state your name, your spelling of your name, and who you're representing. Mr. Jones.
My name is Russ Jones, R-U-S-S-J-O-N-E-S, State Representative of District 24, representing myself and my constituents. I appreciate you coming back to Yuma. I know that I'm sure there's demands from all over the states and requests all over the state for you to have hearings in the various communities. I didn't speak at the first hearing because I felt, and I was there to listen more than anything, but I heard a very common theme over and over again, and that was to keep this community whole. And so I didn't feel it was necessary to speak. Even in watching the maps as they rolled out, when I saw Grid Map 2 that you selected prior to this most recent one, I was somewhat relieved. I thought, wow, they actually heard us. They listened to us. They're keeping our community relatively whole. And then the final map came out, and I saw where we were once again divided, and divided in many ways. It's been written, a house divided cannot long stand. A lot of people attribute that to Lincoln. I believe it came out of the Bible. But there is so much truth to that statement, and it transcends time, that it's important to consider in this set of circumstances with our community. Yuma, and my proposal is pretty simple. Along with Grid Map 2, you keep Yuma and La Paz counties together. Yuma and La Paz counties, you may or may not know, we used to be just one county. And we found, I mean, and this is my personal opinion, in dividing, many people have had second thoughts about that over the ensuing years. But in spite of that, we find that we continue to be a community together. We share a community college district, which is a taxing district, and we've been sharing state legislators. And I spend time up in La Paz County. We do a lot of work together. You can talk to Lynn Pancrezi, Don Shooter, myself, about the time we spend in La Paz County. And when they have issues with the state legislature, they bring them to us because we're part of them, even though we're divided. So I think it's time to put us back together again in a legislative district that actually makes some sense. I want to talk about, isolation breeds in cooperation, and we have such a history in this area of regionalism, not only with La Paz in our legislature and our higher education, but simply also here in Yuma County. As an example, in education, we share the Arizona Western College District. We share a common high school district. We're in the process of forming a JTED. We have consortiums between our elementary school districts that would be divided by the map that's proposed. We have economy and
I think, Mr. Jones, can you wrap it up in 30 seconds? Could you wrap it up? Excuse me, could you wrap it up in 30 seconds?
Yes, I
Can you give him 30 seconds?
appreciate it. And in our economy, it's here, Chamber of Commerce,
Wait, Mr.
Just Forum, Yuma Vegetable Shippers Association, Visitors Bureau, YPG, MCAS, San Luis Port of Entries, GYDC, GYPA, and the list goes on and on and on of how we've worked well together. And I would just ask you in closing to please keep us whole. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, that was, State Representative Jones, thank you so much. You were our first test run with our timer. I think the 30 seconds is blinking on the rim of the microphone, so be aware of that. Again, 3 minutes, and then we'll have Martin Porchas from the Mayor City of Somerton.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair. My name is Martin Porchas, M-A-R-T-I-N-P-O-R-C-H-A-S. I'm a mayor for the city of Somerton. Hearing some talking about dividing. We just went through our redistricting county, the redistricting. Guess what happened to us? We were divided, and since the very beginning, I was attending all the meetings, and the commission never happened to even consider what were our comments. But I would also like to thank the commission for listening to the people of South Yuma County. The residents responded with almost 1,000 letters to you asking to honor the Voting Rights Act. I support the current congressional maps. San Luis, Gadsden, Somerton, and parts of Yuma have more in common with Tucson and Nogales than with Parker and Bullhead. I thank the commission for recognizing this and making the right call with the congressional map. Once again, I thank the commission for your hard work and dedication. And I ask, don't be intimidated by the political bullies who only want to dominate the state. Thank you.
Again, if you guys don't mind, I don't mind you clapping, but the booing, that will not, I'm not going to put up with that. Let's respect each other. If you disagree with them, that's fine. If you want to clap for what they say, but I love that. But booing, if you want to be escorted out of the room, keep booing, you will be escorted out of the room. So we have Don Shooter, State Senator Don Shooter. Again, 3 minutes, sir.
Mr. Vice Chair, thank you. Since it's readily apparent to me that you really don't care what we have to say about redistricting, I thought I would use this time to tell you and tell the people why hopefully you will be removed next week. You repeatedly violated open meeting laws to get strategic telemetry selected. You violated state procurement laws to select the Democratic firm that you preferred. You bid rigged during that process when confronted with it. You stonewalled and shredded evidence. When asked to testify the bid rigging and collusion, you stonewalled investigators and proceeded to hire 6 or 8 attorneys at $400 an hour, which we, the taxpayers of Arizona, are paying to defend your shenanigans. This after already paying your in-house lawyer over $250,000. I'm sure that there are other malfeasance and crimes yet to be discovered, but these alone are more than enough to justify removal. You have betrayed the trust of the people of Arizona. You have colluded in the very kind of corruption that this law was intended to prevent, and you have betrayed the sacred trust of the people of Arizona when they entrusted this with you. Therefore, it is my great hope that the next week our great Governor Jan Brewer will remove any and all of you in the commission, and as a line from one of our sister cities' movies named Tombstone says, Jan's coming and hell's coming with her.
Thank you. The next speaker is State Representative Lynn Pankranzi.
Good afternoon. You're the only commissioner I haven't met. Nice to meet you.
Oh, same here.
First, let me thank the commission for the hard work and service for our great state. Having attended 4 other IRC meetings, I have come to know you as thoughtful and concerned about meeting the needs of the people in the communities and at the same time meeting the federal and state mandates. Yuma County has a reputation of sending outstanding legislators to the state capitol. People like Jones Osborne and Bob McClendon, Pat Connor, Jim Carruthers, and my mentor and first female and Hispanic from the area, Amanda Aguirre. This is a draft map, and let me emphasize, a draft map. It is subject to changes, and that is why the commission is going around the state to get input from the people in the communities from around the state. I have some concerns about these maps. First, rural Arizona does not have the same needs and concerns as metropolitan Phoenix and Tucson. Rural Arizona does not want to be attached to metropolitan Phoenix and Tucson. Please keep us separate so that the rural voice can be heard. Second, La Paz County has been represented by Yuma legislators since before they became a county and wish to stay with Yuma County. I know the Arizona Strip wants to be part of District 5 and Mojave County. Please consider swapping these two and bring La Paz County down with Yuma. And third, I would like Yuma County to stay together, but if because of federal and state mandates that's not possible, please consider taking out all of Maricopa County except for Buckeye and Gila Bend, putting these two in District 13 along with La Paz County, then remove from District 4, remove Glendale and Avondale, add the Santa Cruz area, and put it with District 4. At least then, we would have rural legislators representing rural Arizona. Thank you again for your time, your efforts, and your hard work, and the hard work you have committed to Arizona. Thank you.
Thank you. Did she spell her name? Ms. Pancrezi, do you mind stepping forward, just spelling your name real quickly, please?
Yes. I always forget to do that. Lynn Pancrezi, L-Y-N-N-E. Pancrezi is spelled like Pancrazy, P-A-N-C-R-A-Z-I instead of Y. Thank you.
Thank you. Then next we have Greg Ferguson, Yuma County Board of Supervisors.
Afternoon, it's Greg, G-R-E-G, Ferguson, F-E-R-G-U-S-O-N. I am on the Yuma County Board of Supervisors, but today I guess I'm here representing myself and my biggest constituent, my wife. I'm very concerned about the splitting of Yuma County. As you may know, Yuma and La Paz counties have been represented in one district since anyone can remember. In fact, as Representative Pancrezi said, probably before they were in 2 counties. I thought the stated goals of redistricting was to keep minority-majority districts, establish as many competitive districts as possible, and districts that keep communities of interest. That is exactly what we have in Yuma and La Paz counties. That's exactly what we've always enjoyed. We have a huge farming industry, if not the largest in the state of Arizona, and the associated irrigation districts. We have 2 military bases, and we are a minority-majority county by population. The proposed map splits all this, puts the 2 military bases in a district separate from the city of Yuma, splits the ag community and the irrigation districts, and divides their population. We have always been one of the most competitive legislative districts in Arizona. Let me remind you that we have had Democrat senators and representatives, we've had Republican representatives and senators, we've had women, we've had Hispanics, we've had any combination you can think of, and we're one of the few districts that's able to do that. Currently, we even have a Tea Party member representing us. Our delegation to the legislature has always been a combination. Again, I would like to remind you that we are home to Representative Bob McClendon, who served us for 18 years, was the minority leader, and currently on the Board of Regents. We were represented by Senator Herb Gunther from Walton, and under these new maps, I don't think you'll ever see anybody get elected from a small area as Walton. And he went on to be the director of ADWR. And as previously mentioned, we've had Senator Pat Connor, Senator Amanda Geary, Senator Bob Cannell, and we can go on and on and on. Our delegation has not only represented us well, but Southern Arizona in its entirety. And let me I think one of the major differences here is party really doesn't mean that much. As I said, we've had Democrats and Republicans. It doesn't matter. In rural Arizona, we still vote the people. And what bothers me in your presentation, you said there was 9 rural districts. That's baloney. Go out there and look at that map in the hall. I would say there's 3 districts that even have the possibility of electing rural representatives, and that's going to be 9 out of 90. Currently, I think we are a minority-majority district. I think we have excellent ability for anybody to be elected. And to put us in with metropolitan areas of Phoenix and Tucson is just crazy, because I don't think anybody will ever be elected from here again. So anyway, I ask you to keep us together with the Paz County.
Thank you. Okay, our next 3 speakers, what I'll do is so I can line them up. So Paul Johnson, City Council member. Then we have Teresa Ulmer, former state representative, followed by Edward Foster, former mayor of Quartzsite.
My name is Paul Johnson. That's spelled P-A-U-L-J-O-H-N-S-O-N. I'm a member of the Yuma City Council. I'm also chairman of the Rural Transportation Advocate Council. And I'd like to speak to you today about why you have ignored and deliberately contradicted all of the constitutional requirements that was set forth in your charge to redistrict. What does Yuma have in common with Litchfield Park and Surprise? What do we have in common? What does the southern part of our county have in common with 3 Points and the people that live at the intersection of Valencia Road and Mission Road over in Tucson? I'll tell you what the answer to that is: nothing. There's no commonality of interest, and there is sure no compactness of it. Additionally, the suburbs of Litchfield Park, Buckeye, Goodyear, Surprise, those were all bedroom communities for the great sovereign state of Maricopa County. We're not part of the great sovereign state of Maricopa County. We live in rural Arizona, and the circumstances out here are entirely different. 40% of this community's economic activity is based directly upon agriculture. That's the water's provided by the Colorado River. 25% is from the military, 25% of it's from tourism. We have a lot more in common with La Paz County and Mojave County, where they use the same kind of irrigated Colorado River water irrigated agriculture. If our agriculture goes away, our community goes away. If the military goes away, we go away. When I look at this map you've got here is a real nice map for the city of Yuma. It shows the city of Yuma split in half. It shows the school district split in half. It shows the community college district split in half. It shows the irrigation district split in half. It shows the high school district split in half. But this isn't the bad part. The bad part is when you get into the details and you take a look at how you gerrymandered us into a Maricopa County district. And it seems to me, and after carefully looking at the way you've drawn these maps, it is a deliberate attempt to disenfranchise the rural voters of the state of Arizona and concentrate control in Maricopa County. I deal with this on a weekly and monthly basis on a transportation basis. 71% of the state highway system of lane miles is in rural areas. We only get 50% of the money. You're taking away our representation.
Mr. Johnson.
So that we'll never be represented in the state legislature. Put us back together.
Thank you, sir. I just want to remind you that there's 3 minutes. When that light goes off, that's it. It'll be, the microphone will be cut off. So I just want to remind you.
Thank you. My name is Teresa Ulmer, T-H-E-R-E-S-A. Last name is U-L-M-E-R. And I would like to thank you for coming to Yuma again and hearing our concerns. I do want to start off and just, commend you for surviving what was a very extensive selection process. The voters, when they approved Prop 106, they put in place a system to make sure that there were appointed people by various governors of the past and current to actually scrutinize who was selected. That process took place, and you're here. And we appreciate your volunteer work that you're doing. And you're absolutely fulfilling what the voters requested, and we appreciate that. I just want to say that there are some of us who don't buy into the conspiracy theory of all the ill things that you've done, and I find it a bit irresponsible of our elected officials to feed that theory that you've done so many wrong things. You have a tough job, you're doing what you should be doing, and if both sides are upset, you're doing the right thing. So thank you. I just want to comment on and provide you with a report that was done by National Demographics Corporation for our county redistricting process. And it is basically the polarized voting analysis. What this report does is basically confirm the work that you're doing. And that is to meet the criteria of the Voting Rights Act, which has to be met. And as much as, you're hearing applause from different sides of the room, as much as everybody say we're not a divided community, we're one big happy family, I'm going to call the elephant out of the room. We're not. We have different interests. We have minorities that need to be protected, and that's the #1 criteria that has to be met, like it or not. Splitting our community is difficult, and none of us like that, but we're growing. Things change. It evolves. I don't love the maps, but they're a draft. I know that. You have a lot of work to do, and I know you will continue to do that. Take into account the different opinions you're hearing, the requests. I think that we do have a history of representing people that truly care about our community, and we could potentially have 2 representatives, which are 2, scenarios where we have more representation, and I think that's actually a good scenario. So again, I thank you for your work, and I will provide this to Mr. Canfield for you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Foster. The next 3 speakers will be S. Scott Magana, Irma Myers, Frank Bernal.
Ed Foster, former mayor, town of Quartzsite. I'm here, I'm sort of confused. I mean, we had this meeting earlier in the summer here. We all got up here and we asked certain things of this commission. We asked to be a community of Western Arizona. We asked not to be included in the major metropolitan areas of the state. And I'm not as generous as a previous speaker. I cannot find a congressional district that doesn't infringe somewhere in one of the 2 major metropolitan areas. In particular now, the congressional district that I'm in goes clean around Phoenix to come into the east side of Phoenix. I mean, what world do we have in common with the east side of Phoenix out here in the desert? They don't. We'll get a congressman from the east side of Phoenix who will never come out here. We'll never see a congressman out here. That was the most stupid redistribution of power that I could ever see. We asked at that first meeting for a congressional district that represented the agriculture and the tourism interests of Western Arizona. We got nothing but divided. I thank you, sir.
S. Scott Magana.
Hello, Vice Chairman. Welcome to Yuma.
Thank you.
You may not like it later, but my whole thing is the anyways, SCOTT, MAGANA, 3rd generation family from Yuma or from Somerton. And I agree with most of the people here that we have nothing to do with or in common with Tucson or the Phoenix area. About 3 months ago, the commission was here, and I thought that this area was quite clear that we don't want to be split. This has happened. Apparently, you don't care about us. As far as I see it, I'm upset about it. I look at it as we're over here in the corner, and you're basically telling us, go back in the corner, sit down, and shut up.
Again, I'm going to name the people that will be next. If you guys can get ready. Irma Myers, followed by Frank Bernal, and then I'll name George Rainiers, and then Javier Perez. And again, 3 minutes. And then please do spell your name.
Irma Myers, IRMA-MYERS. Thank you very much for coming to Yuma and listening to our concerns and support the kind of work that you guys are doing. It is great to be listened. And I'm here to represent more than 1,000 people that have spoke up by letters and writing to you guys in South Yuma County. Our main interest is that has a minority population, we have similar needs in the border. We have more in common with Nogales, Naco, and all those areas in Tucson. So that we have it with Bullhead City and other areas in Mojave County. On behalf of this group, we thank you and for considering our input in this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. Frank Bernal, F-R-A-N-K, Bernal, B-E-R-N-A-L. I'm a resident of Yuma, and I'm here to thank you for a wonderful job you're doing. It's a tough job. It's sad that our representatives are not using the correct words. If they're unhappy with your job, I just think they should use other words. For me, it gives me great honor to see the process moving along. I'm proud to be living in Arizona. I'm supporting the two districts. I think we do have a lot in common with Tucson and Nogales. And I just want to once again thank the Commission for the great work you're doing.
Thank you, sir. After Mr. Rainiers, Javier Perez will be Jack Kreitzer, John Colvin. Mr. Rainiers, George Rainiers.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Herrera. My name is George Reiners, G-E-O-R-G-E-R-E-I-N-E-R-S. I provided you with folders of 2 legislative and 1 congressional map and a draft of my comments. My comments may change. When you were here in July, nearly every speaker endorsed the river district, including the mayor of San Luis. At that meeting, I provided you with a description of a congressional map that could have formed the basis for the required river district, or the requested river district. You appeared to listen, but obviously you did not hear. The maps you presented today are a clear indication of that. After I saw the maps you approved, I went to work and created my own alternative maps. I used your mapping program. I created 1 congressional and 2 legislative maps that would achieve, to the greatest extent possible, what we here in Yuma requested. I used the required criteria of population, Voting Rights Act, compactness, contiguity, communities of interest, and competitiveness. I paid particular attention to the Voting Rights Act. Let me first describe the legislative maps for the audience. The first legislative map would keep all of Yuma County and most of La Paz County together. This map excludes the northeast and some of the northwest portion of La Paz County and the town of Wendon. It was developed with a population standard in mind. It exceeds the population standard by 1 person. This map would have a Hispanic 18-plus population of 49.7%, minority population will be 54.5%. Registered Democrats will be 35%. Registered Republican will be 30.8%. Registered other would be 34.2%. Second legislative map would keep all of the PAWS in Yuma counties whole. It would not encroach into any other county. It would exceed the population standard by only 3,172 or 1.5%. I think that's well within your limitations. This map would have a Hispanic population of 49.1%, total minority population at 53.9%. Registered Democrats would be 34.8%, registered Republicans 31.2%, registered others 34.1%. Both these maps favored Democrats, and they only pick up 15.5% of others. If in any election they would be able to win. I'd like to conclude by asking the audience for a show of hands.
Sir, you're...
Those of you who would like to see Yuma County kept whole, please raise your hands.
Thank you, sir. Javier Perez.
My name is Javier Perez. I would like to thank you for giving Yuma 2 voices in Congress. Not only do we get more, but these maps make it possible for the Commission to create legal maps in accordance to the Voting Rights Act and maintains minority voting rights for residents of South San Luis, Gadsden, Somerton, and Yuma. San Luis, Gadsden, Somerton, and parts of Yuma have more in common with Tucson, Nogales, Parker, than with Parker or Bullhead City. I thank the Commission for recognizing this and making the right call with the congressional maps. Thank you so much for your service.
Thank you. Jack Kretzer. Again, the next people are Jack Kretzer, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, John Colvin, followed by Dan Dawson, and then Lucy Shipp. If you guys don't mind starting getting to the front so we can get everybody speaking as quickly as possible. I guess you can. Are we prepared?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Jack, J-A-C-K, Kretzer, K-R-E-T-Z-E-R. You have a thankless job, sir. I hope you have Band-Aids. I want to direct your attention to the overhead, the 2 parts of it, the 2 end columns, where it talks about Republicans, Democrats, and other. That's where you should have started. That's where you should have started. The other has the same rights as the Democrats and Republicans, but you're a Democrat. They're a Republican. And all your concern is having a Democrat district or a Republican district, whether it's a state legislature or the congressional districts. And that's wrong. You started the wrong place, and you ended up with the comments that you've had today because all you're interested in is being a Democrat or Republican. And let me point out to you that every problem of our country, of our state, of our city, and our county were created and sustained by Democrats and Republicans. No one else has any ability to do the bad things that have happened. The simple solution to Don Shooter is for the state constitution to be changed to have equal representation of counties. And that's simple. You reduce the Senate from 30 to 15. La Paz County, you would have a senator. Yuma County would have a senator. They would be equal to Maricopa County. All the comments you've heard today are from people who are either a Democrat or Republican. In Yuma County, in the city of Yuma, the majority of people here have Hispanic surnames. If the Hispanic people actually voted, there wouldn't be Mr. Krieger here to talk, Mr. Johnson here to talk, Mr. Shooter here to talk. They would have a Hispanic surname, wouldn't they? I object, sir, to your setting 3 minutes for people to speak when you gave the mayor 4 minutes and 50 seconds. Everyone should have the equal right to speak and present their ideas, whether you're an elected official or just a common citizen. I appreciate you being here, but go back to the drawing boards, sweep the maps clean and start over using 3 parts, Democrat, Republican, and other. Others should be equal in every case. Gosh, you got a second left.
John Colvin. Again, Dan Dawson next, Lucy Shipp, followed by Gail Beeler, if you don't mind getting ready to speak after Dan.
I'm glad to be here. Mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. I'm John Colvin, John-Colvin. And I found out a long time ago in the country we live in, it's the United States of America. United, the key word. Your individual freedoms are guaranteed by the Constitution. Thus, we have one man, one vote principle. There's to be no discrimination. There's to be no preferential treatment. Your proper redistricting includes equal populations using established administrative boundaries like the counties, and consideration for geographic and geological features like the rivers, the mountains, and so forth, establishing communities of interest where appropriate, mining and, as opposed to farming or not conflicting. And it permits competitive districts when doing what would not significantly underline the other goals. The other goals are the ones that are the basis for why we're here, not the discrimination part. One man, one vote, no discrimination. No preferential treatment will avoid competitive district and exacerbate dividing our population. Facilitate the meeting requirements of the Voting Act as listed above several times today. And it'll assure for progress for a united Arizona. A map to accomplish this simply requires establishing congressional and legislative districts based on populations. Exclude individuals, political, ethnic, economic, religion, gender, or whatever national origin you can take. And citizenship should be required for all voters. Jack Kretzer put some figures up there. There's only 2 numbers you really need to use. The population, 3.2 million, and the number of precincts, 2,240. Block off the state, square them up, and I'm sure your 5th and less desirable requirement there on your competitive thing will be met. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dan Dawson? No Dan Dawson? Lucy Shipp, followed by Gail Beeler, followed by Terry E. Lambert.
Thank you. Lucy Shipp, L-U-C-Y-S-H-I-P-P. And I'd like to thank the commission for doing thankless work. I was on the Yuma County Board of Supervisors when we formed our own independent commission, and I know how hard it is to get the numbers to match. It takes a lot of tweaking. I am appalled that the governor and the attorney general are making this political. The whole purpose of the voters passing Prop 106 was to take it out of the political arena. However, let's be realistic. This is the most political thing we do, period. With that in mind, I'd like to first talk about the legislative map. I know it can be tweaked. I know it's difficult to tweak, but that's what this gentleman does professionally, and he can tweak it. I would like you to consider Representative Pancrazi's proposal to tweak District 13 to put La Paz County back in with Yuma County, and as the numbers require, go on over to Gila Bend and Buckeye. That makes a community of interest for us as a rural district. Then I think you'll find the numbers will make Surprise, Glendale, Avondale, and Litchfield Park into a separate district, and they would have a community of interest. We really belong with La Paz County and they with us. Historically, they were part of Yuma County. As been mentioned, they're part of our districts, our college districts, our school districts. They belong with us. I think it can be tweaked and that would work. On the congressional end, I think it's very interesting. Again, I would like to see Yuma County not split. Splitting us simply does not recognize community of interest. If it has to be split, again, I think it could be tweaked so that we're not split. If it has to be split, I think it's interesting that those who want a river district basically get one, and those that want a border district basically get one, and we get twice the representation. Now, it's a weird map. It does not recognize community of interest for any of us. Yuma County's community of interest, even though we're agriculture, is really border on the congressional level. When we go back to DC, we talk about border issues. We talk about the port of entries. We talk about immigration. We talk about border trade. We talk about securing the border. We need border representation, and that is our community of interest on the congressional level. Again, I'd rather see you tweak it to make all of Yuma County in one district, but I think we need to go across the border. And again, I thank you for your time and your effort and your thick skin. Good luck.
Thank you. So again, after Gail will be Terry Lambert, Richard Nix, followed by Betsy Gottspooner.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Herrera. I'm Gail Beeler, and I voted in the 2000 election for a change in Arizona Constitution to give back to the citizens of Arizona the redistricting of our political districts. I saw the past political influence that preceded this new process. I was in hopes that the Independent Commission, county and state, would improve greatly on the fairness of redistricting, which is required every 10 years. Just this month, the Yuma County Supervisors voted on a new district for Yuma County, and I followed the process looking for independent decisions following the Voting Rights Act. I was disappointed in the process, as the county commissioners the county commission was not balanced. There was a majority of one party over another. They went through a process allowing the public to speak, but they did not feel, I did not feel that they listened, I'm sorry. I did not feel that they listened as shown by their decisions. Maps were indeed presented and were voted down with little study and facts and figures. I was indeed concerned that this would happen. It went to the county supervisors, and they forwarded that on their decision this last month, that it would go to the Department of Justice, and I think that we're going to find that the Department of Justice is going to be the final decision for Yuma County instead of locally here. Saying that, I'm here today to commend you as an independent and well-balanced commission. Thank you for not allowing the influence of state and federal politics and politicians to interfere and influence your decisions. I hope that this continues on to the final decision. None of us like change, but when Arizona is growing as fast a pace as it is, we need to identify the communities of interest and competitiveness so that the Voter Rights Act is supported and all voters are protected. Thank you for serving, thank you for your fairness, and thank you for your independence.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Terry Lambert, T-E-R-R-Y, Lambert, L-A-M-B-E-R-T. I'm here, I'm going to try and talk a little bit about our agricultural economy, the military economy, and the snowbirds. Part of the military and the snowbirds, a large part of those, have their residency somewhere else, and they don't vote here. But they are an integral part of this Yuma area. And because of that, they're part of the respect for communities of interest and shouldn't be split in half either. I think these cash cows deserve to be considered with this community because they are an integral part of this community, even though it may only be 6 months. The employment rate here is extremely high. Ask them if they're waiting for them to show up. So they should be considered in this area because they come to this area. They have some of them go to Yuma or go to Tucson or Phoenix or other parts, but the ones that come here are part of this community and should be considered, and therefore also not split the county up and make the confusion even worse for the people who pay the bill, these cash cows. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Richard Nix, N-I-X. We assumed integrity in the IRC, but what you're offering is gerrymandering raised to a science. The map you proposed bisects Yuma County, violating the requirements of compact and contiguous districts, of communities of interest, of town and county boundaries, and of competitive districts. It solidifies Grijalva's seat in Congress by removing Republican North Yuma from the South, but you don't realize that the Hispanics in South County are waking up to the fact that Grijalva does not really represent their values. Even left-leaning media such as the Arizona Republic, Washington Post, the Daily Kos brag that the map, and I quote, screws Republicans. Do they have the same writer? District 4 violates starting with a grid as the District 4 surrounds Phoenix on 3 sides. That's hard to do with grids. It even includes Fountain Hills, hardly a community of interest with Yuma and La Paz counties. Do you have a reason for that? Arizona Republican Congressman Schreikert will lose his seat. How many Arizona Democratic congressmen will lose their seats? None. 2 Republicans total will lose their seats if this map is adopted. Coincidence? Hardly. This proposed map is a travesty of law and justice and must not be allowed. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have Betty Gottspooner, Valerie Cook, followed by Alex Bejarano, and John, I think it's Bolts.
My name is Betsy Gottspooner, B-E-T-S-Y-G-O-T-T-S, P as in Paul, O-N-E-R. I am a 3rd generation born in Yuma. My great-grandfather was a territorial sheriff here. I have a stake in this area, in a history that goes way back. My first of the questions, in looking at the timeline, it says that 2 of you on the board are from Maricopa County and 3 of you on the board are from Pima County. What happened to the rest of the state that we've only got Tucson and Phoenix in this thing? And then they're looking at the congressional map. Every single one of these areas is either going to have Phoenix or Tucson in it. Where are we going to get our own people elected when we've got Tucson and Phoenix people running against us? We won't get anybody from any other part of the state of Arizona. We don't have a monopoly in Phoenix and Tucson of the smart people. We've got them all through this state, and yet they're the ones that are going to win because every one of them can come from Phoenix or Tucson. I'm greatly concerned about dividing Yuma County. I'm greatly concerned that you've stuck us with Pima and Maricopa County. And there's also what happened to our original thought that La Paz and us could go together because we have common interests, and we do have people smart enough to be in Congress. The same is true with the state. You give us two possibilities for state representation, except you also lumped us in with, again, areas in Phoenix. So our even state legislators won't be coming out of Yuma any longer. I think the map has got to be redrawn, and it's got to be reconsidered that there's more to this state than Phoenix and Tucson. Yuma is the third largest population in the state of Arizona. And we need to have our own people represented up there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Valerie Cook, V-A-L-E-R-I-E, Cook, C-O-O-K. And I don't like the maps. I see our city and our county being divided, and I don't feel that it calls for any common ground for anybody, the way the map is drawn now. And I would beg of you to reconsider and redo the map. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Alex Bejarano, A-L-E-X-B-E-J-A-R-A-N-O, and I'm a member of the Welton Town Council. First of all, I'd like to commend you for the work that you've done for our state and for the people that live in Yuma County. I do support the districts as they're currently drafted. I do, however, have some concerns that Welton will not get the representation that we deserve. I know that our population is small, but I do believe that we need to be in districts that are in a district that's similar to us, and that would put us in with southern Yuma County. Welton and East Yuma County is heavily agriculture, and that's one of our main industries. That's where most of our residents are employed. And I would just ask that you consider putting us redrawing the line and putting us down in southern Yuma County. We have nothing in common with Bullhead City or with Lake Havasu or with Fountain Hills. We wouldn't be able to compete in that district. Any federal help that would come would go to the places where there's the majority population. So again, I do thank you for the current map as drafted, but I would ask you to, as I think Lucy Ship said, to tweak it a little and put us down with a district where we might be represented. Thank you.
So next we have John Bolts, William Ladd, followed by Maria, I think it's Ritz, and then Emma Torres.
Good afternoon, Mr. Commissioner, Vice Chairman. My name is John Bolts, J-O-H-N. Bolts is B-O-E-L-T-S. I come here today representing Yuma County Farm Bureau and the many members of that organization and the nearly $4 billion industry that we comprise here in Yuma County. And I wanted to add about 20 minutes to my speech here by saying I want to parrot what Ms. Pancrazzi, Mr. Jones, Supervisor Ferguson, Mayor Krieger, and Councilman Johnson said. I think they were right on the mark. Specifically to talk about ag, I would like to say that our County Farm Bureau goes and lobbies, and I don't care what party affiliation they are, when we go to the State House, and when we go to Congress, and we talk about what our industry needs. That's people from all stripes, all walks, all nationalities. And when we go there to speak about what our industry needs, that's really where the rubber meets the road. Because oftentimes our legislative bodies, whether they're federal or state, are regulating our industries, affecting our jobs. And ag being one of the largest, if not the largest employer in this county, I would like to say that it's a lot easier when at least I know I have 2 or 3 folks there in Congress or at the State House that I don't have to preface with, yes, this is a map of Arizona and Yuma's down here in the corner, and that's where I come from. And it's really nice when we have folks up there that already know where Yuma is, already have a pretty good idea of what I'm there to talk to them about, and that way I can spend my time on the rest of the folks that have no idea what our industry needs or doesn't need, and what their regulations, what their ideas for regulatory practices may bring to our industry. The ag industry here in Yuma produces a lot of crops, but specifically vegetables. It reaches most of Canada and North America. Over 70% of the populations of both Canada and the United States are eating produce that comes right out of here. So when we go to Congress, we speak for that industry. When we go to the State House, we speak for that industry. And it really would be beneficial if you guys would go back, get rid of this draft that you're working on now, and go back to the previous map and draw lines a little bit straighter. It would really benefit all of us. Thank you.
My name is William Ladd, W-I-L-L-I-A-M, Ladd, L-A-D-D. And I'd like to say I'm really sorry that the state of Arizona citizens were duped 10 years ago or so when they passed Proposition 106. This was a well-meaning socialist idea that just doesn't work. What we have now is 5 people in a commission, supposedly 2 Republican, 2 Democrat, and 1, quote, independent, although I understand the independent is married to a high-ranking official in one of the parties, the Democrat Party. But, be that as it may, what it means is that instead of having the legislature do their job, people that we have elected, people that are responsible to us, we have 5 unelected people, only one of which has to be influenced to change the entire districting and the legislation for the entire next 10 years. It's wrong. We started out the presentation with a lecture from a Mr. Adelson, a federal compliance consultant in Washington, D.C., threatening us and telling us we had to use the federal government. We had to bow down and ask their permission to get approval. Somebody needs to tell them that the government works for us. We don't work for the government. And I'll ask the gentleman over here that's drawing the maps, where's your headquarters? Washington, D.C.?
Sir, this is about you and...
I know what it's about. It's about the whole legislative thing here. So I have a real problem with all that. Now, I've only lived here for 10 years. And I thought it was really interesting when I came here because here's Yuma, out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, to go to a big city, it's a couple of 100 miles no matter what direction you head. And we obviously have something here in the water because this committee thinks we are so powerful that we have to be split in half so we don't have any representation and power in electing representatives. That's ridiculous. We need to redo it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, my name is Maria Retiz, M-A-R-I-A-R-E-T-X-Z. I live in Somerton, in the South community. I would like to say thank you for coming and listening to us. And I think I have a good things, and the map is a little bit ticket, but there's more, the community, the rural community does have more common in Nogales and Tucson, but in Gadsden and Somerton, they will like to stay together because it's rural place, and but you be considering all the communities because you need to care the community, the people, the young people, and all the community in the state. Thank you for coming and listening to us.
Thank you. So then we have Emma Torres, I think it's Steve Miller, followed by Russ Jones, which I think he already spoke. Actually, Shelley Baker would be next.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Jose Herrera. Thank you for being here. My name is Emma Torres, EMMATORRES. And what I want to say here is that I'm a borderlander, a proud fronteriza. I have grown in this community, and I can tell you that if you are not from the community, from the border, you don't understand the border. So people are talking here about, people of interest. They don't even understand. They've never been even to South County in San Luis and Summers, so they have no clue even about our needs. They're talking about non-divisiveness. Well, 2 weeks ago, we pleaded not to be divided in our community, and they care less. They divided our counties in a ridiculous way. That I hope that something has been done about that. But in reference to supporting the map, the border map, I totally support that because we do have, those of us from the border understand each other, and we do have commonalities with Nogales and part of Tucson and some of those areas. I do not agree, as most of the people here, in reference to being together with Maricopa State, like they said, because it's true. We would not have a lot of representation if we're paired with that, but I definitely support the border map. We do not have the border doesn't have any commonalities with Mojave and Bullhead City. I've been there too. I work all that area, and we have nothing to do with them. But Parker, definitely, we work together. We are a common community, and again, as our Representative Pancrasi mentioned earlier, a little tweaking on the maps will probably help. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
My name is Steve Miller, S-T-E-V-E-M-I-L-L-E-R. I came to the commission's first meeting out at AWC. We had nothing. Unfortunately, I still believe we have nothing. You're taking Yuma's representation away from us. I'm a Democrat, and I don't believe I'm going to get a Democratic representative from Yuma elected because you put us in Tucson and Phoenix. So all our representation has been negated by your map. We have more in common, unlike a lot of these people saying, when Yuma County was with La Paz than we do with being part of Tucson or part of Phoenix. So you put the population to negate all our Yuma representation in our 2 districts. I am sorry. I don't believe you guys fairly or realistically understand the importance of Yuma County. You negated our representation by what you did in this committee. I don't agree with all the stuff that was said here, but how can we have somebody who are elected to voice our concerns when you put them in part of the state of Maricopa or the state of, we don't get any representation. All we do is lose our funds to them. So at this point in time, I would request you redraw the map and remove us from Tucson and from Phoenix. Thank you.
Thank you. So then after Shelley Baker, we have Dr. Constance Uribe, followed by Stephen Replogue, thank you, and then Charles Roker.
Good afternoon, Shelley Baker, S-H-E-L-L-Y-B-A-K-E-R, La Paz County Recorder. I've heard a great deal today about the Voter Rights Act being used to trump all other the criteria. And I would just like to say that among life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, a voter's right to a private vote is supreme. And the Voters' Right Act says in bullet point 3, the presence of discrimination can be determined by analyzing population data and election results. I can tell you as an election officer that the only thing election results can tell you is who won the election. It cannot tell you how any one individual voted and whether or not they were discriminating when they voted, as that vote is private and it should remain so. and their reasons for voting also should remain private. The 2008 presidential election should have proven that United States citizens don't vote based on race, but rather we vote based on whose ideas resonate with the majority, and that is as it should be. I'm asking you today to use caution when you interpret election results as being skewed to discriminate against one party or another, or one race or another. I also would like to ask you that you keep La Paz County with Yuma County as we are communities of interest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Constance Uribe, C-O-N-S-T-A-N-C-E, last name U-R-I-B-E. It's a Hispanic name. Does that mean anything to anybody Hispanic? You guys seem to be focused on this Hispanic thing. Okay, Mr. Herrera, I graduated from Cofa High before you were born. We spoke Spanish in Spanish class. You know what? You guys had a job. You had an assignment. You were supposed to be focused on population. You were supposed to be focused on concentration of voters. You were supposed to be focused on community of interest. You were supposed to be focused on contiguousness of areas, and you lost it. You got sidetracked. You forgot something very important. Arizona is part of the United States of America, and we have a saying in the United States of America: all men are created equal. Okay? It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. You had it all here. Yuma is concentrated. The Yuma area is concentrated. We have it all. We have the minority majority that you're so concerned about. We have it all. It was here for you. You had it right here, and you divided it. You divided Yuma. You divided my community. You divided my people. You even divided my family. And as far as the dead space that you're supposed to be concerned about, you reached out towards Pima County, and you brought that in. Well, when I was studying medicine at the University of Arizona, Raul Grijalva was messing around with a bunch of people who were studying the politics of Cuba and Karl Marx. And then when he got into office, he started writing articles for something called the People's Weekly World, which is a communist rag. It's a communist newspaper. And then in Chicago at this National Communist Convention, an Arizona member of the Communist Party was bragging about how they helped Raul Grijalva get elected. This man has ties to the Communist Party. And somebody named Susan Thorpe wrote articles in this communist rag, this People's Weekly World, about how they helped Raul Grijalva get elected. You know what? I will not tolerate having a communist take over Yuma County. I simply won't allow this. You know, all the progressive Democrats want, all they understand is hate and vitriol. When I came and spoke to you before over there at the college, I was nice. Well, I'm not going to be nice anymore. You don't understand. Let me explain something to you. Before you were born, there was a Democrat I campaigned for.
Ma'am, thank you.
Stephen, S-T-E-P-H-E-N, Replogle, R-E-P-L-O-G-L-E. I would like to challenge the name of the Independent Redistricting Commission. I do not see any independence in it whatsoever. I see actually a person who is supposed to be an independent as the chairperson, who basically is an undercover Democrat, who basically went against the open meetings rule, who basically solicited votes outside of that format to try and line up strategic telemetry, which is basically a Democratic group to draw these districting maps. I see a lot of corruption going on, and I see a lot of politicking going on. I do not see any independent redistricting commission in evidence whatsoever. You've got a group that has basically swayed this to try and guarantee altered elections, to guarantee an outcome. This is not the purpose of elections. Elections are to be representing the people of an area, and Yuma has not been represented for an awful long time. And it's the type of thing, you look at your maps, you're splitting a city right in half, you're dividing the community. They should be along the Colorado River. Our communal interests are along the agricultural base and along the Colorado River and along the irrigation districts in this area. And I do not see any interest whatsoever being done by this commission in regards to those interests of the community. All I see is an attempt to sway elections and guarantee outcomes. I think that the Independent Redistricting Commission needs to be independent, and the current one needs to be replaced.
Thank you. Sure.
Great, I'll put it when I'm ready. All right, thank you. My name is Charles Rucker, R-O-E-C-K-E-R, and Charles is Charles. I want to actually come before you representing the Democratic point of view. I am very appreciative of the Commission's effort to break up the Arizona Republican power block in Arizona. You guys have done a wonderful job, and I hope you get away with it. Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, Commissioners, also for promoting a more democratic ideology. The adopted map is a great start. However, I'd like to see a more progressive one that symbolizes the IRC's and today's Democratic Party's ultimate agenda. First, I have a map here. There we go. Oh, good. Check. All right. Take that off. This is a map of Arizona, and the letters are districts, are new districts we can use.
Sir, you do me a favor, can you remove that, please?
Why?
Some people in the audience are offended by it, so but I need to respect everyone's
Sir,
point of
your
view.
party represents that. I'm just doing what your party represents.
Can you get to your presentation without the...
Okay. Well, any case, our Democratic Party, come on, we all know who we are. We're socialists, okay? Let's just be proud of that, all right? And so what we can do is let's make Arizona truly red, all right? Not just a red state like it used to, but a real red state. I mean Mao and Marx and Obama, okay? So we have these words. We can use those as independent districts, and then the hammer and the sickle, that can be the very progressive hammer and the sickle. That can be one district in the middle of Phoenix. And so we do that. And then I have another one, too.
I think your 3 minutes are up. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you. Okay, followed by Sharon White. We have Sharon White, followed by Russ Clark. Is Sharon White not here? Nope. Russ Clark?
My name is Russ Clark. That's R-U-S-S-C-L-A-R-K. I was at the first meeting at AWC, and I know the mics were working. I know you were listening. I don't think you were paying attention, or there was a plan to just ignore us because you had a different agenda. Don't know which it was, but I know the outcome. The outcome is that we've got a map that is split and is unacceptable to the people in this community. People in South County, people in North County, all have expressed concerns, as they did at AWC. At AWC, we had mayors from San Luis and Somerton, as well as from Yuma, that expressed to you that we are a continuous community, well-balanced, and one that gets along and relies on each other. You've been effective in splitting YPG, you've been effective from our other military base at the Marine base, and you've weakened us. You've weakened us because now we have two representatives that don't care about us. You're going to have two because we're going to be small sections of those two. As Don Shooter says, we're two small tails now instead of one large tail. You've made us less effective. We're not going to get the representation as it sets now. You've ignored the fact that you were supposed to keep these things compact. You've ignored it. You've ignored communities of interest. You've ignored community or county barriers. You've ignored all of that for some other agenda, which I can only guess is to make things competitive by unseating our current representatives, or we're making it difficult for our current representatives to get reelected. We find that unacceptable. I do applaud our governor, though. Our governor has had the courage to see something that's swimming and quacking and call it a duck. She She has asked you to come forward and talk about shredded documents, to talk about meetings in secret, violations of public meeting laws. She's asked you why you haven't come forward to testify when the legislature's asked you to. The community, this entire state made a mistake back in 2000. In 2000, they voted to take out of the hands of the legislature something that they were supposed to do, something that they had an obligation to do, to redraw these boundaries. Somehow they thought it would be better to put it into 5 hyper-partisan hands with no one to answer to versus doing it in the legislature that we voted for, and they have strict guidelines of conduct. You obviously don't have the conduct that the legislator has. No one can hold your feet to the fire, and it's unfortunate. My hope is that after the governor gets done with her duck comments, that we're going to go right back to the voters, that we're going to ask to undo this thing, go back to the voters, and put it back in the hands of the legislature where it belongs. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next 3 speakers are Luis Heredia, Lorna Brooks, followed by Sandy Pierce.
Luis Heredia, L-U-I-S-H-E-R-E-D-I-A. I want to say that there is a lot of work that is placed in trying to get public comments here. A lot of work to try to present the information that this state really deserves in casting a light in what Yuma County is. I worked for a federal office here in Yuma County, and the issues that we dealt with were primarily border, primarily the funding for public education, the funding for the Sunset Community Health Clinic. There were several points of roundtables that we used to hold to try to get this community work that was necessary. So I believe that the maps do present at least a scenario that understand what this area is really about. Now, there are differences and there are comments and concerns, and I think we should all respect those comments and concerns. And I think when we work together to present this information, we could come up with a reasonable and acceptable conclusion. But we all need to respect, I think, the opinions that we have. We do need to respect the communities that make up this great Yuma County. Now, we are all trying to respond to building political boundaries that represent the community, that represent the ideas that our communities, either in the city of Yuma, the city of Somerton, and Welton, and the city of San Luis, all do to try to elect the people that best represent them. Now, not everybody's going to get what they want, but there needs to be respect. I could say that working in the federal offices, we received calls or comments, voice messages, that I know the mayor mentioned about a color-blind society. It is about being colorblind, but it's also about being accepting of differences of opinions, differences of political judgment. And I could say that many of these voice messages and many of the comments that were received were not respectful. I mean, there were not, I think, meaning of what our former government was meant. And so this was after 7 years in working in a federal office, receiving voicemail after voicemail. We can achieve a colorblind, but we also have to be accepting. Thank you.
Thank you. Lorna Brooks.
Lorna Brooks, Lorna-Brooks, and I just want to support the map. You had one on your website that was called the 3 border districts. That's the closest one to logic. Yuma County should not be cut in half, nor should the town of Yuma be cut in half. And I think it makes more sense to be put with La Paz County, Mojave County, parts of Yavapai County, perhaps Quartzsite, and of course to include the Berry Goldwater bombing range. These areas are all rural, agricultural, and often interrelated through families, not to mention the water districts, the farming groups, the business organizations, the college districts, and all that's been outlined before. Also, our Colorado River Indian tribes are interrelated. I don't think it's right to split them in half either. It'd be nice to have our own district, a river district, and that is for the congressional plan. As far as the legislative plan goes, La Paz and Yuma counties should be kept together. And as others have said, we have nothing in common with Phoenix or Tucson. I've lived in both cities. They are light years different from Yuma. We have a much more relaxed way of living here, and we are dependent on agriculture, which they are not, and they don't understand it. They also don't understand the Colorado River and the needs of the people living along it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandy Pierce?
Sandy Pierce, P-I-E-R-C-E. I am District 1 Supervisor for La Paz County. I've lived in Parker over 50 years. My husband farms in the valley on the Colorado River Indian tribes. Colorado River Indian tribes is also part of my district, District 1. Our county government has always worked with Yuma County. I mean, the representatives have absolutely, and the senator, they have been so helpful to La Paz County on many issues that we have had, and they have always been there and stood up for us. We need to stay with Yuma County. We don't need to be separated. We have too many things in common, besides the river, the agriculture, the tribes, the Hispanic. You know, it's just we're all one big community of interest. So I'm here today asking you to please keep La Paz County with Yuma and do not split Yuma into two pieces. Thank you.
Thank you. William Michael Smith.
Good afternoon. My name is William Michael Smith, S-M-I-T-H. I am the chairman of the Yuma County Democratic Party. I want to thank you for having this hearing here today. And I'm a little bit encouraged about listening to all the comments. I know we have a lot of differences with our Republican friends, but we do have some things in common, and I'd like to address those. I'd like to reiterate or at least acknowledge supporting the comments of former Chairman of the Board of Supervisors, Lucy Shipp, and our present legislator, Ms. Pancrazy. There are some details about the commonality of interest in Yuma and La Paz County that have been addressed in a very general fashion, but people fail to realize, I think, how important they are. Yuma and La Paz County hold 1.2 million acre feet of the 2.8 million acre feet of Colorado River water rights. 45% of all Arizona's share of the Colorado River, the rights exist in Yuma and La Paz County. Yuma ships 70 to 80% of all the fresh produce shipped in the United States between the months of November and March of each year. The agriculture is really the foundation of the southwestern part of Arizona. And it, more than that, is these two counties have been tied together first as one county, one of the original 4 territorial counties
in the state of Arizona. I still don't remember why we separated. Everybody's forgotten, but we never lost each other. There is no commonality of interest north of La Paz County with La Paz and Yuma. That I disagree with, because they don't have the agriculture that we have, and they don't have the water rights that we have. They may have recreation, and they may have some other things, but they don't have the tie that we have. I would hate to see us get too far involved with Maricopa and Pima County, because there's something they don't have that we have, that we're very protective of, and that's our water rights. And we don't need to be getting into situations with representatives from the metropolitan areas.
Sir, your 3 minutes are up.
I would hope that you would consider those factors as well as the border area and location.
Okay, thank you, sir. And our last speaker is Russell McLeod with the Yuma County Supervisors. Is Russell McLeod here? Oh.
Good afternoon. Russell McLeod, RUSSELLMCCLOUD. Thank you for coming here today to listen to the community. I can tell you that sitting on the Board of Supervisors, the most important lesson I've learned is I can do hours of study and look at what looks right on paper, but then I go to the meeting and I hear from the public. And there are oftentimes that hearing from the public sways the opinion of what you might see on paper, what looks good on paper. The residents of Yuma County have had the opportunity to review the legislative district map that was approved by the Commission on October 10th. I can tell you today that I have not received one single positive comment from any Yuma County resident regarding the recommended legislative districts. The idea that Yuma County could lose its collective voice in the state legislative process over the next 10 years is not only wrong, it's absurd. Not only does the proposed plan segregate Yuma County into two separate geographic regions, it ties both of those regions to areas that, at best, have remote commonalities to the issues critical to Yuma County. We have a unified voice in Yuma County that needs to be respected and preserved, not fragmented. Yuma County is now nearly over 200,000 residents. We have an economic base like no other in the state. 2 of 5 major military installations are within Yuma County's boundaries. The largest agricultural industry within the state and a unique tourism industry. Yuma County cannot expect that its interests can be understood or served at the state level by anyone other than someone that lives within this community. As a border community with an agricultural base, Yuma County's security interests differ greatly from its neighboring border counties in the state. The challenges that face communities in Pima, Santa Cruz, and Cochise counties are vastly different from those we deal with in Yuma County. Presuming that any representative from outside of Yuma County will understand the social-economic structure that has flourished in Yuma County for decades is a serious misjudgment. Residents of Yuma County have been active participants in state politics at the highest levels for many years. Some of the best and brightest minds to participate in public service have come from within Yuma County. We take great pride in our ability to promote local issues while respecting the greater needs of the state of Arizona. The plan under consideration renders Yuma County virtually irrelevant for all intents and purposes for the next 10 years. This would be an injustice to a county that has contributed so much to this great state. And I would refer comments that John Bolts made. He did an excellent job, and I would refer to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I think we have one more speaker. That's Ralph B. Williams. Is he here?
Thank you for letting me talk, and thank you for coming.
somebody told me this was going to be changed from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock and changed back to 1 o'clock. So you have a very difficult task, and I appreciate that you've tried to meet the challenge. And I also appreciate that no commission, no body of people is ever going to draw maps that satisfy everybody. And your first responsibility is drawing maps with equal population, and I believe from what I see that you have done that. But the next priority is adhering to already established boundary lines. And as far as Yuma County is concerned, your commission has totally violated its duty. Interstate 8 is not an established borderline. To follow your mandate, you need to put all of Yuma County into one district. There is an argument that the present maps allow Yuma County to be represented by twice as many representatives. But from what you've just heard, that is the height of foolishness. Being divided would be less than half as likely to have any local representation. We would be in a minute minority for 2 congressmen, and our legislature would be more influenced by Maricopa and Pima counties. I repeat my solution. Follow your mandate to follow geographical lines for both Congress and the legislature. Do not divide Yuma County.
I think that was our last speaker, so this ended a lot earlier than I thought it would, but that's fine. You guys can go back to your families. Thank you guys so much for being here and spending the time with us and voicing your concerns. And we'll be next, when is our next? South Phoenix will be on Monday. Tuesday, that's what I meant, Tuesday. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for listening, and have a good day. Take care.
I've got one comment.